A historic night for Braden Smith and the Purdue Boilermakers. Another record set. Braden Smith becomes your all-time Big Ten assist leader in the history of this great conference. Some great names he surpassed. We're going to be talking about it all. And of course, a big Boilers win on the road in Madison. And this is Boilers in the Stands post-game show starting right now. Welcome back to Boilers in the Stands post-game show. I am your host, Kraig Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Joe Jackson. Craig Bowers was actually in Madison, Wisconsin with his son in the stands doing the fan thing. So he'll be joining us in just a few minutes as he makes his way back to his hotel room. But Boilers win, really took care of business in the second half, but let's not bury the lead. Braden Smith becomes the all-time record holder for assists in Big Ten history, passing Cassius Winston of Michigan State. Certainly an impressive 4-year career, and we still have a whole Big Ten season here now that January has started for him to extend that record and, of course, chase the all-time NCAA record. And that is certainly the lead here. I think, Joe, we can talk about the game, and we definitely will. An impressive second-half performance by the Purdue Boilermakers, who continue to show that they can go on runs, and if you don't play a perfect game against Purdue, then you're going to find yourselves in a 20-point hole pretty quickly. But overall, the story of the night is Braden Smith, who not only took control of this basketball game, from the jump, but obviously put himself in the record books for all time. And who knows if anyone will ever break this record. Certainly will be hard. I know there's a guy in Michigan State that might have something to say about that in a few years, but it's all about, longevity. And if you can sustain this consistency over a 4-year period, is not easy. And Braden Smith has shown from the start, when him and Fletcher Loyer and Trey Kaufman-Renn came on the scene, and from day one, with Zach Edey here to get his feet wet, and now it's Braden's team. For me personally, and I know I can probably speak for Joe and Craig here, it has been a pleasure and a privilege to cover this guy as he has made his ascent to one of the best point guards in Big Ten history. And there is a long list of all-time greats to play in this conference. You start with guys like Magic Johnson and Isaiah Thomas, obviously Cassius Winston. The names go on, and Braden Smith sits atop your all-time assist leader board, and that is just something that should be celebrated, and that's how we'll start tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. That is exactly where we do have to start. And it's like you said, it's been so much fun to watch Braden Smith develop and just become the player that he is. And the passing is obviously the big draw, but it's also like that he's been a legitimate scorer, and he isn't just this one-dimensional, there are guys that can rack up assists and they can't really score. He can now do both, and then you have to worry about both, and he's basically torched whatever coverage you want to throw against him. If you want him to be a scorer, he can give you 30 points. If you want him to be a passer, he can create 20 assist opportunities for his team any given night, or a night like tonight where he goes for 14 points, 12 assists on pretty efficient shooting. Just is an incredible point guard, and one of the best passers I've ever seen in my life. In terms of just, physically being able to see what he's able to do. I know I said this, I think after the Auburn game, but I've realized just how much I've learned about the game of basketball and the point guard position by watching Braden over these last 4 years. Some of the reads that happens, how he attacks different angles, how he attacks bigs and, throws them off their rhythm. So that way he can rotate defenses and get to the pass that he wants. He sees stuff 2 to 3 steps ahead, and he understands how to manipulate the defense to do what he wants. The record-breaking assist today, right, where he kind of does a little wraparound pass to Cluff. He gets the big attached, and as soon as it happened, boom, it's a drop-off, and it's an easy bucket. And how many times have we seen Braden Smith do things like that this season and throughout his career? And if we just take a moment to reflect, obviously Braden was, for a freshman point guard, Braden was very, very, very impressive his freshman season. But also when you think back to what he was freshman season and compare it to now, it's he was obviously incredible his freshman season, in terms of being a true freshman point guard who was just handed the keys right away and averaged over 30 minutes a game and all that. But there's also a lot of learning mistakes and things he had to improve on. And year by year, it's felt like he's added more and more to his game. Where now at the collegiate level, it's like defenses have no definitive answer. You just have to hope Purdue misses shots, and that's because of what Braden Smith's able to do. So I'm sure we'll talk about him more. I'm sure we'll talk about him more too when Kraig gets on. But yeah, just it's been so much fun to watch Braden Smith. My favorite college player I've ever watched. Like, just yeah, it is incredible. Like he is just incredible. Also, what was he ranked? Number 200, I think, coming into the season, or not
Yep.
in the season, into college, something like that. So it's not like he was a 5-star. Like, I think he's an NBA player because I think he's so good at basketball, he's going to get a shot. But like, he's not the prototypical 6'5" point guard that just can just kind of tower over everybody. Like, he does it at listed at a generous, probably 6 foot, ranked number 200 coming into college. Like, this wasn't supposed to happen, and yet he's so good that it did.
Yeah, for sure. And it's one of those things where, like you said, what his ranking was, how many Division One, offers he got. I know that Gonzaga was kind of looking at him a little bit. For the most part, it was Purdue and not many else. Not many other programs were looking his way, and that is a testament to what Matt Painter and this program has built. And you consider this era of NIL and transfer portal, and I know he came in just a touch before this really has gone haywire the way it has in some ways. But at the same time, Purdue has never been afraid to look at a player and say, this is somebody that fits what we do. This is somebody that is a Boilermaker by definition, is going to fit our program. And while there's a lot of, chasing of talent, Purdue develops talent. And with what you saw with Braden Smith, and obviously it does help when you have a guy like Zach Edey your first couple of years here to help you develop as a point guard. But to your point, since Zach has left and the way defensive fronts have changed and the way Braden Smith has been able to dissect great defenses at times, has been incredible to watch. And I kind of rewind back to that Houston game last year in March Madness, and what you're seeing and what everyone hopes can become of this Purdue team. I thought that kind of reached the peak of what Braden Smith can show you in that game. And like you said, defenses do not have answers because of what Braden Smith can dissect. You talk about quarterback awareness. I know everybody's, I see people joking in the chat that I'm like fully in Bears mode, and that's 100% the truth. It's playoff football season right now. But that is what Braden Smith is. He is a quarterback, and his understanding of defensive coverages and understanding the chess match that's being played against him and the defensive looks that he gets on a possession to possession basis. He just is surgical when you see him break down a defense. And it's not just the assists, it's the hockey assist. It's the ability to kick it to Trey Kaufman-Renn in the middle, who then opens up on the outside three, with Fletcher Loyer. Or even on one play tonight where he knows he's the decoy. He runs underneath towards the rim. They come flashing his way. That opens up a wide open three for Fletcher Loyer. For as much as we talked about gravity with Zach Edey, the gravity now is going towards Braden's way, and he just has a great understanding of how to manipulate that, whether the ball's in his hands or out of it.
Yeah, it's like it's so hard to describe because it's just like, what are you supposed to do defensively and offensively? He can make any pass you want. Like, you want just this, obviously we know the simple short roll pocket pass, like he does that with his eyes closed in the chemistry him and TKR have. He can hit Loyer seemingly without looking because he knows where they're at. And I think there's a testament too of they have played 124 or something like that games together now, and so that adds to it. And but he can hit guys on the lob and let them finish above the rim. He can get into the paint, collapse, and then skip pass. He can move defenses with his eyes to open up a passage you don't think's there. Like it just, he can do everything. And I was kind of looking up some stats or a couple stats while you were talking, because so not updated for today's game because I've obviously have not gone back and hand tracked these like I have for every other one. But for reference, the D1 average right now is roughly 0.95 points per shots. Like every time the team shoots, they're averaging roughly 0.95 points per possession. Braden Smith against drop coverage, which is one of the two main pick and roll coverages, is 1.24 points per possession. So basically 0.3 more. I know this is a lot of numbers, but we'll get there in a second. 1.24 points per possession against drop coverage, 1.11 points per possession against hedge. Both of those will probably slightly go up after today's game. Basically what I'm saying is, like, comparative to just like the average D1 offense, or even if you filter for just high major, like no matter what defenses teams throw at him in terms of pick and roll, like he just gets whatever he wants. Like he just simply gets whatever he wants. I've long said you cannot play drop coverage against him because he will torch you. But today Wisconsin pressured him so hard the entire game, and he ends up with 12 assists to 3 turnovers, and 2 of those were just basically because Purdue kind of was like, all right, we're coasting for 4 minutes, and Braden just got a little lackadaisical. And just thinking about that back to his freshman season, I think of like the Northwestern game his freshman year, for anybody that remembers, where he had 6 turnovers, and I think 4 of them came down the stretch and in overtime. And it was against, again, high pressure and blitzing, and that, like, he has just developed to, it just doesn't matter. Like Purdue just has to be ready, and guys are going to be open.
Yeah. I mean, we wanted to make sure we gave Braden Smith his proper due. There's so many times over the last 4 or 5 years, whether it's Edey or Braden, they kind of become victims of kind of being lulled to sleep of their greatness. And when we do our player breakdowns or keys to the game, it feels like more times than not, we're isolating moments that are the obscure and not what we are used to seeing, which is Braden and Zach just doing what becomes expected of them, but isn't something that is the normalcy. It shouldn't be taken for granted. What they do is unique, but they do it on such a consistent and dominant basis that it gets to a point where you just expect it and you don't highlight it the way it should be. And so tonight, there's so many things to talk about with this game and the way Purdue has continued to show that they can go on big runs. And they did that in the second half to take control. The Kohl Center is not an easy place to play in Madison, Wisconsin. And they started out slow, and you felt like, oh, maybe they're going to get in the dogfight in the end. And Purdue just did what they have done over the course of this season, and that's just really turned on the gas in the second half. But Braden Smith deserves his proper due to start this program, because what he's done in this conference, you talk about guys like, again, Isaiah Thomas and Magic Johnson, not 2 of the greatest point guards in Big Ten history, but 2 of the greatest players in basketball history. And those are guys that Braden Smith isn't just outgunning, he is surpassing and outshining to the nth degree. And there's so many others out there. Deron Williams, Steve Alford, Mateen Cleaves. The last Big Ten team to ever win a national championship was that 2001 Michigan State team with Mateen Cleaves. He was a fantastic point guard in this conference. And Braden Smith has really stamped his mark in the history of this sport. And, again, another thing that for us as Purdue fans is just kind of, a commonality is what they've done. But to go from Zach Edey, one of the greatest players in college basketball history, to Braden Smith, who gets the baton passed to him. They played together, and he is also one of the greatest players to play in college basketball history. When we talk about this being the golden era of Purdue basketball, to appreciate, be where your feet are. Yes, there's bigger fish to fry in March. And even on when Braden broke the record, the whole crowd and the Purdue, the Purdue faithful are celebrating him, and Braden is going at whatever Wisconsin fan was talking crap to him in the stands. He did not care that he just broke the record. He cared about letting the Wisconsin fan know whatever they were into during the game. And that just kind of goes to show you the mentality that Braden Smith has. And you got to appreciate that level of competitiveness. And then, then obviously after the record was broken, it kind of felt like Purdue kind of forgot what they were doing for a minute. And Wisconsin came back into the game here a little bit. But that all being said, congrats to Braden Smith. It's been a pleasure, and we're really going to appreciate these last few months as they go for a national championship.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the last thing I have, and I'm sure we'll talk about Braden more once Kraig gets on too, then we can jump around after this. Like Braden put up 14 points, 12 assists, 4 rebounds, had 3 turnovers and a steal. If he didn't break the record tonight, like we would have been like, oh yeah, Braden was incredible. Like, cool. And then, as you said, like it's just so normal that obviously we would have acknowledged it and talked about it some, but it wouldn't be some big story that he put up 14 and 12 because it's just like, oh, okay, cool. Braden had a good game. Like it is what it is. But that's just the level he's kind of hits. And this is a testament to it, and he deserves all the flowers. So before transitioning, should we give a shout out to our sponsor for this episode?
Yeah, absolutely. Show me how this is done. It's been a minute.
Yeah. So shout out to BJ Rule for sponsoring this episode.
Purdue graduate and current Lafayette resident, BJ Rule has close to 15 years experience helping buyers, sellers, and real estate investors in Lafayette and surrounding areas. If you are looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, give BJ a call or text to set up an appointment to see how he can help you accomplish your goals. Your home will likely be the most expensive purchase of your life. Have the experts with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams on your side and let BJ help you navigate this process. Call 317-345-4600. Again, that's BJ Rule with Rainey & Company at Keller Williams at 317-345-4600.
Thank you to BJ Rule as always for their support to the program. We appreciate them. Make sure you hit them up. And let's move things along. Hit that like button while you're hanging out here on Boilers in the Stands post-game show. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We appreciate everybody tuning in across Twitter and Facebook, and then of course YouTube. If you're watching on some of those other platforms, head over to the YouTube channel, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. That's the easiest way to show your support and help us along with what we're trying to build here as another special season is halfway through now here as we start the month of January. And this is when Big Ten play really gets ramped up. You kind of, the last couple weeks, you get like one game a week, and now it's going to move, it's going to start really getting dialed up. You'll have 3 games a week, when you're looking at the Big Ten landscape and everything of that nature, obviously everybody's got their eyes on Michigan. It starts to become this idea where Purdue has to keep up with the style points in how they win. It's not just winning now. Now you got a team like Michigan pushing Purdue to not just win, but win by 20 or more every game. And I don't hate that. I know there's just a lot of arguing about who's better. That'll get handled on the basketball court here in a month or so. But regardless, I kind of like the idea that there's a team out there really pushing Purdue to another level. And so Purdue, at one point, they're up 7 at half, Joe, and they go up 24, and you're watching kind of the avalanche, that Purdue has been known for throughout the season, and the level of execution and the surgical way they kind of go about things. And if you slip at any point when you're the opposing team, you can find yourself looking at a 10-0 run before you know it. And that's exactly what happened. And as much as we focus on Braden Smith, there certainly was other contributors like Fletcher Loyer, who has been so impressive this year. His moxie has always been something he carries, but I think there's just another level of that this year, hitting big-time shots in big-time moments. And Jakari Harris and CJ Cox, as we always seem to combine them as a package deal. Once again, in this game, you saw it in the Auburn game, where these guys are really starting to figure out, okay, this is my role on the team, and this is how I can get the most out of it.
Yeah, it was a team effort today for sure. In terms of we'll pull up the stats in a sec. All 5 starters in double figures, all 9 players who played ended up scoring. This is a game where Fletch does go for 20. It was good to see him knock. He went 4 for 10. Good to see him start to get the shots going a little bit again. 7 of 20 in his last 2 games. He is firing from 3 right now, and we know he's been in a slump, but it feels like he's starting to turn the corner out of it. I wouldn't be shocked for a big Fletch shooting game shortly within the next couple. But this is one of those where, I mean, TKR doesn't have like a super impressive stat line, although I thought he was still very impactful in what he was able to do. We already talked about Braden at length, but everybody was contributing. And even if there wasn't necessarily a superstar standout outside of Braden, because even Fletch's 20 I thought was somewhat quiet, everybody kind of did their part. I thought the defense for 85% of the game was very good across the board too. And this is just one of those complete efforts where I almost feel like I'm taking the win for granted. And part of it is I think I predicted, I thought Purdue would kind of handle this game. But like they went onto the road at Wisconsin and kind of handled business, especially for the middle 30 minutes of the game. And were just able to kind of impose their will and do what they needed to do. And that's exactly what Purdue had to do. Like Purdue is the better team. And again, like this is just another testament to kind of how good they can be. Yes, Wisconsin's down this year. Like they're not as good as I thought they'd be, and I'm sure others thought. But still, it's not like you don't take a road win in the Big Ten for granted. I don't care if it's at Rutgers. Like you don't take it for granted. Also, this continues the streak. Purdue has not had a game decided by less than 16 points since the Memphis game on November 20th. Every single game has been decided by 16 plus points. Obviously, one of those is a loss, but just another. This is a season so far, at least for the last month plus, where like I think Purdue fans are used to being stressed out in the end of games and probably felt a little bit of anxiety spike at the end of this one. But like it just has been kind of decided generally for the last 10 minutes of most of these games recently. It's been a different feel.
Yeah, it was interesting to see when the record got broke, how all of a sudden you thought Purdue was going to run away and win this game by 30, and credit to Wisconsin. They battled back to, some level of respectability. They weren't able to get it under 10. And, once Fletcher hit that final 3 to put them back up 14, that was pretty much it. But, overall, I think what I'm seeing, at least in these last couple games, and I know I haven't been able to join you guys for a couple of these, some of my takeaways might be bigger picture of over the last 3 or 4 games versus what we just saw in this game. But, all the talk going into the season was Jakari Harris was primed to have a breakout year. And that really hadn't happened through the month of November or even halfway through December. But now you are seeing Jakari Harris really having, the role that I think we thought he had the potential of playing in. I don't know exactly what his numbers ended up with. I know we're going to go over them here soon, but what I am seeing is somebody that has a legitimate scoring presence. We know what he brings to the table from a defensive standpoint, and that was shown again here tonight. But when those two guys are going, CJ and Jakari on the offensive end, they are almost impossible to beat.
Yeah, no, and this is something we talked about, I think, definitely in the offseason too. It's like most lineups, CJ and Jakari are the 5th option, which is like incredible in itself. But then when they're knocking down shots like they are today, and they kind of flipped where I thought Jakari had the much better first half, CJ had the much better second half. When they're knocking down shots, when they're confident, I mean, today they go 5 of 13 combined from 3. Like it's just so tough to beat them because they're usually the guy that teams are going to be fine giving up just by default, right? Like Wisconsin early in this game, I mean, we can talk about it later, maybe with the board too. It was just like they sent so much help to show on TKR. Naturally, where Cluff's going to be positioned, there's going to be a body there. You're not going to help off Loyer. It comes off of CJ, it comes off Jakari, and they have to be able to knock him down and make him pay. And I mean, Jakari did that in the first half, and CJ did it in the second half. And when that's the case, it's just like, what are you defensively? Like, what are you supposed to do? Like we joked, or I don't know, but oh man, I'm forgetting his first name. Bruce Pearl's son, the coach of Auburn, Stephen Pearl. When they played, he was basically just like, yeah, like you're not game planning to stop CJ and Jakari and Benter, and when they get hot like this, like what you're just not going to win. And he maybe didn't say it as politely as that, but like that is the truth though. Like when that happens, when those guys are cooking, when they're confident, and Jakari and CJ both, I thought, had a ton of confidence today. You defense is legitimately their only hope is just Purdue misses open shots.
Absolutely. So let's bring our guy Kraig Bowers into the fray here, as he was at the Kohl Center in Wisconsin for a historic night for Braden Smith and the Purdue Boilermakers. How we doing, Kraig?
I'm doing great. This is not an easy place to win, and I've come up here now, I want to say 3 times in the last 4 years, and one of those times, obviously, we only played them at home, and it always feels like this game is tough and close, and obviously Purdue got a big lead, and then Wisconsin kind of made a late push, and then Purdue spread it back out a little bit at the end again. But that first half was tough sledding, and obviously that 10-0 run in the first or the beginning of the second half was huge. Anytime you can get a win in the Kohl Center, it's big. When you can win by 16 comfortably, it's absolutely huge. And students weren't here, but the crowd, the arena was still pretty full. I will say it was probably 25% Purdue fans, enough Purdue fans that when he broke the Big Ten career assist record, there was a chant of Braden Smith that kind of took over the arena, and had to be a pretty cool moment. I don't know if Braden could hear it in that moment, but was definitely a cool moment for the fans who made the trip up here, or Purdue fans that just live in this part of the country that made it to the game, and for any of the team and coaching staff that was able to hear that, because Purdue faithful came and got to see a special historic moment from Braden. And if you ask me anything about the last 10 minutes of the game, I won't be able to tell you because I was working on content for all of our socials. And I had Braden, my son, who was not as happy as I was walking back to the hotel, trying to fill me in on what happened in the last 10 minutes of the game because I was firing away at social media stuff.
Well, we appreciate the hard work. Sorry for dropping the ball on that. We're cleaning up Christmas stuff here at the house, so I was kind of juggling at the end as well. But yeah, Purdue kind of let go of the gas a little bit, and credit to Wisconsin. You know, they continued to battle even when the game was out of reach. And then Fletcher Loyer hit a 3 to kind of put the nail in the coffin. But yeah, when you talk about Braden not knowing whether or not he could was he celebrating the moment? As I said, if you watch the broadcast later on, Kraig, it was funny because he broke the record and immediately was going at a Wisconsin fan in the stands, like as everyone was trying to cheer for him, he's just going at him all the way back as he walks back to half court because there was a foul on the play to Oscar Cluff, and he's just going at this guy, and it was just kind of symbolic of who Braden Smith is as a competitor. He's not worried about the record. He's worried about letting the crowd know whoever was chirping at him all game. So just another spotlight of the player that Braden Smith has been over 4 years here with Purdue basketball.
Yeah, 100%. And I think, solidifies himself, if he hadn't already, as the best point guard in Purdue history. Obviously has an argument now that he owns the assist record as the best point guard in Big Ten history. I'm sure there's some people that would say there's point guards that have won national championships and that he still needs to do that to be considered the greatest point guard of all time in the Big Ten, but he's certainly in that conversation. And he's chasing history for that national record quickly, and got a chance to do it before the NCAA tournament even starts, maybe. So special season, without a doubt, for Braden, and thought he was really good tonight. I know you guys have already gone through all this. For me, I thought it was a change in defensive intensity, and in all honesty, I thought Meyer was kind of the one that started it when he came in off the bench. I thought he played some really, really tough, hard-nosed minutes. Thought everybody else kind of picked up on that. Obviously, the turnovers that they forced on Wisconsin in that stretch, points off turnovers, and then the increase in physicality from our bigs that Joe and I thought they would have the advantage in from the jump, and they didn't. But I thought in the second half, during the stretch, at least when they really opened it up, that they enforced their will and their physicality in the front court on Wisconsin.
Yeah, I mean, Joe got into it a little bit, but honestly, we were spending the first 25 minutes of this show serenading Braden Smith, and rightfully so. So, when in your, kind of point of the defensive end, we had not touched on that yet. And you're 100% right. When you see Omer Meyer get into the passing lane, it was almost a clear path foul. I know they reviewed it, but that was just a tone setting moment. I know somebody else later in our chat, and I think I highlighted for plays of the game, but when he hit that three in the corner at the when the shot clock was expiring, that was another big play. So it was great to see Meyer kind of make his impact in this game as well. So now that we've spent 30 minutes kind of giving Braden Smith his just due on a big night, let's kind of get into the nuts and bolts of what we do here. I don't know where you want to take this, Joe, whether you want to go to the minutes just distribution or the board, but dealer's choice, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, we can pull up the rotation. I don't think there's anything too big to call out, but I'll just kind of flash it in case for anybody that wants to see it. For anybody that's new, colored box means that player played during that minute. There's positions at the bottom, and then also Purdue margin highlighted in blue at the bottom for each lineup. I don't think there's anything, like I said, too big to call out. Jakari gets the closing minutes of the first half until he picks up the second foul, which then they actually went to Meyer instead of CJ. I think that was the only thing that was probably semi-surprising. Aside from that, everything feels pretty straightforward. Braden does play all 20 minutes in the second half. Like, we're going to expect to probably see that more and more from Braden. Do you guys got anything? Because I think at this point the rotation's pretty much set. But like I said, there's just going to be the minor things game to game.
I mean, the only thing, I didn't even notice it in the moment. We went out at halftime and we're walking around, and somebody who watches the show came up to me and said a few kind words about you guys and the show, and then asked me why CJ wasn't playing as much. And I was like, what? I hadn't noticed it in the moment, and I went and pulled up the minutes quick. And I guess what I said to her at that time was, honestly, I thought Meyer just kind of earned some minutes with the way that he was playing. You said Meyer came back in instead of CJ right at the end, right,
no,
Joe?
Jakari would have gotten all those minutes except for he picked up a second foul with like a minute and a half left.
Oh, and then Meyer came in for him.
Yeah, him instead of CJ.
Because CJ still had like 9 minutes in the first half, if I remember right. But anyway, I thought, like, to have trust to put Meyer out there in that last minute and a half, I still think is big, and I thought he played a really nice first half.
Yeah, no big takeaways. Obviously, I know some people are gonna get held up on Benner, especially after his last performance. How much can he find his way into the rotation? And obviously he is a flamethrower when he has an opportunity, but I think tonight's kind of more of a representation of what he can expect for the rest of the year, with the exception of some, anomaly type of games.
Was that to me?
No, that was just a general statement. I love Jack Benner, but it's just going to be tough for him to get substantial minutes in games, with the exception of, some outliers here and there.
Yeah. And I mean, he maybe could have in this one, but it is hard too with Wisconsin. They play three guards. Like, you would want him to be more of a guarding a true wing. And I guess you could argue Rhodey's that, but this game specifically, it's harder for him to find minutes at the three.
Yeah.
And like, TK's going to play. Purdue wants TK to be right around that 32-minute mark. They've said that for 3 years now, that they really don't want to extend him past that because they see kind of a law of diminishing returns. In terms of him being able to produce super efficiently, and Jack's going to get those 8 minutes. And I think tonight it was 33. They listed as 33 and 8. So I don't know what they did there from a rounding error standpoint, but like, that's primarily what it's going to be in games that are close enough that, there's no junk minutes.
Yeah. Let's continue to kick it around. Joe, I know you mentioned there was something you wanted to highlight on the board. I don't know if you want to take it there before we get into, I saw you looking around for the board.
So that's why I didn't go to it earlier, because I was just like, oh yeah, I needed to kind of have this preps. And sometimes just don't get to it right away. But I mean, what I think wanted to show was defensively, because I don't think it was an awesome Purdue defensive night. I think they had a very good stretch. I think you get a little fortunate with Wisconsin missing some shots, but also I do think for the I guess that's to say this. I don't think this was an A+ defensive game, but I do think it was probably like a B type, B+, something in that kind of area. And basically what they did is, and Wisconsin kind of puts them in a tough spot defensively with how they play offense, right? With just kind of this continuity pick and roll where they just move the ball back and forth continually. Sorry, I'm just trying to draw this really quick. But one thing that really stood out is the help defense. And I think at times it got tough because like there was just so much they had to do. But basically, as I get this situated, there we go. Whoever's guarding this weak side corner. So ball's over here right now. I should call that out. Ball's called screen, right? Wisconsin's offense is screen, come off of it. If you don't get anything, reverse, cut, and then move the ball in another pick and roll. This defender, whoever's guarding this weak side corner, he was always like really pulled over. And a lot of times it was Braden, but like CJ was in this spot. Everybody was in this spot at some point. And I think one thing that stood out too was just like their use of this combined with switching. So Purdue, we know personnel wise, they don't have like the best defensive roster, but they're a top 15, 20 roster or defense in the country because of their scheme. And so like here, as the ball comes around, right, there's multiple bodies here that make it a little bit tougher to try to get downhill. And Wisconsin still had success getting downhill. And that's why I don't think it was like an A+ game. I think like this defender usually on ball, pretty much whoever it was kind of struggled all game. But also, so beyond that, as this kind of pick and roll happened, I think what they did well was this ball gets reversed. This guy always cuts. And so oftentimes this defender was over here, and this is a quick ball reversal. And so as this defender cut, these two defenders would just switch. So now as this gets moved here, and right, this player slides up, he would just take them. This guy would stay here. And then this guy would cut through all the way here. And I know this is getting messy now, but you can kind of see that they're in basically the same spots then, where as this ball gets reversed, now he's here. This guy's now guarding this weak side corner, so he's able to stay here and just able to kind of move the ball, keep the ball more in front that way. And it also helps in order to kind of contest a lot of threes, because Wisconsin shot 4 of 25 from 3, and I think a lot of it was that kind of switching, so now they're able to close out and contest. Bigs are now able to step out a little bit more, right? Wisconsin has 3-ish stretch bigs that they'll play. And just kind of all that combined, I thought made it a very good team effort. I do think defensively, Purdue just kind of got punched early. Like it was just weird. Like that very first possession, I think where it was Blackwell gets TKR on him, and it's because of that. Purdue kind of like X'd out their switching, and it was just a little sloppy. So now TKR gets on Blackwell takes him immediately. Next play, Braden like slips as he's backpedaling, and now he's like late recovering to that spot, and Blackwell blows by him. Braden already has a foul, so he's not worried about that. And then the next one, like CJ just kind of just stands there and lets Blackwell just rip by him for some reason. And it was just like really weird right off the bats of just like, they kind of got punched early. And I think after that first little bit, they really settled in, able to generate at least a couple more deflections. I know they didn't force like a ton of turnovers today, but still just, I think made it at least a little bit more congested, like, and making things not quite as easy as what they could have been. So, and rant. Muted. Still muted. There you are.
I was wondering why. I was like, I was teeing you up if you had anything else to add before we moved on, Kraig.
No, let's go ahead and move on.
Yeah, I apologize. It's $10 in the jar. 25 from Blake Widmer. 25 in the jar because I've been gone for a month. So there it is. Little double down for my obnoxiousness. But appreciate everybody tuning in. Once again, hit the like button. Great job as always with the board. You are the best at what you do in that regard. So let's get into it. Some individual breakdowns, and we'll continue to move this thing along.
Sounds good. Pull up. Well, we can talk through the team stats really quick just to kind of throw them out, but then we can we can move the players because we're 40 minutes in and we've only really talked about Braden. Rightfully so, though. And like I said, I was Kraig. I was telling Braggs, like, if Braden didn't break the assist record tonight, we would have been like, he had 14 and 12. Cool, let's move on. But felt like he deserved to get a little bit more talk in this one. Already talked through some of these stats. Wisconsin 4 of 25 from 3, just 16%. Purdue 10 of 27, have I believe a stronger second half shooting the ball where they were 6 of 13 from 3. Wisconsin gets 39 to 37 rebounds, but if you do break it down by offensive rebounding percentage, Purdue slightly wins that battle. So pretty much the same in terms of rebounding. 22 assists for Purdue, only 7 for Wisconsin. 11 turnovers for Wisconsin, 7 for Purdue. Most of those came late, like we kind of mentioned. 28 points in the paint for Purdue, 32 for Wisconsin. Not a fast game today, with only 4 fast break points for Purdue, 8 for Wisconsin. 13 of 19 from the free throw line for Purdue, 68%. And I would bet this is the most free throw attempts they've allowed defensively. Wisconsin goes 21 of 26 from the line. Kraig, Braggs, either of you, anything stand out before we jump into players?
Yeah, definitely the free throws for Wisconsin stand out. I mean, I think the broadcast jinxed it at one point, saying that Purdue's percentage of points attributed from free throws defensively was one of the lowest in the country. And then all of a sudden, Wisconsin gets all these attempts at the free throw line, and they took advantage with 21 of those. That certainly was a big part of keeping them in the game. I'm a little surprised the 3-pointers for Wisconsin is as low as it was. It felt like they had some threes that were keeping them in the game, but obviously 425, pretty ugly affair for them on their side of things. And then obviously I just think when you look at the turnover margin for Purdue, only turning the ball over 7 times in this game. Anytime you're able to, move the ball the way Purdue does, the way they share it, 22 assists to 7 turnovers, that's about as good as it gets in terms of efficiency.
Yeah, for me, I think as Joe takes away the stats, so I can't quote the numbers.
I did it.
Oh, geez, Kraig.
I'll pull it back up. I'm sorry. I did it.
What you're saying there, though, Greg, just in terms of 3-point percentage, I know, Joe, that's one of the things we talked about in the preview show is if Purdue's going to send help in the paint or send help against drivers, which they saw a lot more of in the second half, people were going to be open for a second on the 3-point line. And it was going to be really, really important for Purdue to know their rotations, to get to the right spot, to close out as fast as they can on those 3-point shooters, try to push them off the line a bit, try to contest a little bit, just make them uncomfortable. Wisconsin doesn't hit a 3 in the second half tonight. So honestly, they missed some open ones, but I thought by and large, Purdue did a pretty nice job of that on that end of the floor. So I thought that was really, really important. Obviously, anytime you look at this, if we're Purdue after the Iowa State game, we're looking at this and going, well, how many times are we going to shoot 4-25 from 3? This is a different game if we just shoot our normal percentage. So honestly, I think that one jumps out as much as any. The turnover margin got closer as the entire game wore on, but kind of after it was pretty much already decided. So again, I thought just the grit and grind on the defensive end, getting into passing lanes. It felt to me, Joe, like there towards the end of the first half, beginning of the second half, that Purdue had their bigs coming out higher on that hedge than what they started the game. I don't know that that's 100% the case, but it felt that way, and just thought they really tuned up the pressure there. Like you said, like Blackwell and Boyd are good enough. They're going to beat you, and sometimes you're going to break down in your defense, and they certainly did that enough tonight. But I thought all in all, a really good effort.
Blake Whitmer says in the chat, turnovers in the final 8 minutes for Purdue made those numbers worse. They really took care of the basketball for the first 30 minutes. And that definitely is a big underlying. And Kraig, when you mentioned Blackwell, that is interesting because like we always look at when we look at player breakdowns, we really just focus on Purdue's players, and not always do we look on Wisconsin's side of things. But to hold Blackwell under 10 points is one of those things where it's almost somewhat misleading because he comes out of the game in the first half with foul trouble. And that was actually when Wisconsin played competitively. And yet in the second half, when Blackwell was able to get back into the basketball game, that's where Purdue was able to extend their lead. So that was, I thought, an interesting kind of layer to this game.
Yeah, it was, especially because Blackwell, like early, like I said, those 3 possessions, I believe, where he takes TKR, Braden, and CJ kind of all off the dribble, like that was pretty early, and then he gets checked out and only has 3 more points the rest of the game. He had a really, really bad shooting night from three, and has kind of been the theme for him against tougher competition. But yeah, like Boyd got his, and he was very good. 24 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, and I think that's the one definitely nitpick for Purdue defensively is like they just didn't really have anybody on the roster that was consistently staying in front of him tonight, and he kind of just got what he wanted. Um, but they were able to limit Blackwell, and really, right, Wisconsin's built a big three of Winter, Boyd, Blackwell. Winter and Boyd both kind of did their thing. Blackwell had
Yep.
an off night, and then from there, nobody else really got going, and that's just the difference, right? Where Purdue got everybody going.
Yep. No question. All right.
All
Well,
right,
let's keep kicking this thing around. Where do you guys want to go to next?
pull up. Unless you look like you had something, but pull up the Purdue stats here. Some of the player stats we've already talked about. Braden, Kraig, I'll kind of throw it to you quickly. He had 14 points, 12 assists, 4 rebounds, a steal, 6-11 from the floor. I know you kind of talked about him a little bit when you came on, but if there's anything else you want to add on for Braden, kind of give you the floor here.
Really, the only thing I would add onto everything else, I guess that you guys have already talked about. When I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not, but I thought at the beginning of the second half, coupled with the increased physicality from the two bigs, I thought Braden's defensive intensity really ratcheted up as well. You saw him, get his hands on a ball and then dive out of bounds trying to chase it down. And I thought he just really increased it on that end. That's something that he's really improved on this year. And all honesty, if he wants to make it in the NBA, he's going to have to show that he can be a quality defender also. And he's improved on that certainly this year a bunch. But those early moments, especially, I thought you definitely saw that.
Yeah, no question. And let's move over to. I have to go next to Fletcher Loyer. I mean, you talked about it a little bit earlier, Joe, but 20 points, 6 of 15 shooting, not exactly from an efficiency standpoint like the best, but in my opinion, like this kind of game to me is if they want to win a national championship, I don't care if he takes 25 shots and doesn't, the efficiency isn't there. The fact that he's getting up as many shots as he can is always going to give them a better opportunity to win, because more times than not, he's going to make his buckets. He ends up with 34 minutes on the game, 3 assists, 5 rebounds, but, overall the 4 threes, and some of those came in big moments. There's just time and again where you see this guy stepping up in big moments where they got to have a bucket. And Fletcher Loyer is the one taking and making those shots.
Yeah, and right, he's been in the slump, and it just doesn't matter, right? He is honestly, since kind of going in a slump, he's fired off 7, 10, and 10 3-point attempts in the last 3 games, and hits a couple big ones tonight. He's never going to be afraid of the moment. I thought this was a really good like overall game from Loyer, where he wasn't one dimensional. Got a couple drives, got a couple assists. Thought facilitating was good. Also like one of the better defensive Fletcher games I've seen, where he was just in the right spots. He walled up a couple times at the rim. All the rotations felt on point for the most part. Like it was a game where, right, this isn't the game that Fletch is going to be remembered for. He'll have the games where he hits, 7 threes or something like that. And what was it? Was it Tennessee or whatever? Way back when he had like 30 points, it felt like whatever. Those are the games he'll be remembered for more. But this to me was probably his most complete game of the season. And also just seeing him knock down a few threes again felt good.
Yeah, there was a moment in there where I was like, I'm definitely going to ask Joe, like, are we getting worried at all yet about the 3-point shooting? And then he knocks, a few down, a couple in that stretch when they blow it open, and ends up 4 of 10 on the night. So still shoots 40% from threes, reminding us once again, there is no reason to be worried. And as long as he's driving and getting to the free throw line too, I think the overall field goal percentage can be a little bit deceiving looking at 6 of 15, because he's getting to the line too. And whenever he gets to the line, he's hitting some of those drives that he misses He's not getting a foul call necessarily. So his effective field goal percentage still ends up at 53% tonight. True shooting percentage, which factors in points off of free throws, gets him up to 58%. So like from an analytic standpoint, to me, he's still fine there from a percentage basis in terms of the points he's producing off the total amount of shots that he's taking.
It is funny when Fletcher drives to the rim and kind of creates that contact where a guy like Braden or somebody else might get the call for whatever reason. Fletcher, like if he deserves the call, he's more times than not going to get the call. And it's almost like an optics thing, I feel like, from a officiating standpoint. Like he doesn't have the look of someone that deserves the call. So when he gets hacked, it's just like, well, you put yourself into that situation, even though, he just gets completely blasted. Between him and Trey Kaufman-Renn, I can't decide who gets fouled more. And like, they'll be laying on the ground, just like laughing, like what just happened to me? But, it's, you can't expect every call, and, you're not always going to get them, but you got to love the fight. So let's continue to kick things around here. Where do we want to take this to next? We could go to CJ Cox or something
let's go to the TKR, kind of round out the big three, I think, because probably not as interesting a conversation with TKR. 11 points, 5 rebounds, 2 of them offensive, 3 assists, 1 turnover, 1 block, 5 of 13 from the field. It felt like he had a more impactful game than probably his stats show. I thought he had a couple big time, just tough buckets, had a couple good passes, thought the defense was solid. Again, this isn't a game you're writing home to people about for TKR, but a game where it's just like, oh yeah, I thought he was a positive contributor for Purdue.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, another game where he starts out a little bit slow. I was sitting there watching the game with my son, and he's like, man, your big guy's not really getting going. I was like, no. He does this all the time. He'll still end up with double figures. Like once that floater goes in, you'll see the next 5 or 6 go in. It feels like, again, started a little slow. I thought him and Cluff both, right? Like, I don't know. There was just a switch that wasn't there from a physicality standpoint early on. Feel like we've seen that more from Oscar, where it's almost like Oscar needs to get punched before he realizes he's in the fight sometimes, and pushes back, and he does in the end, right? In this one, especially in the second half. But I thought Trey was really, really impactful during that run. He gets that block. That was going to be my play of the game. While it was happening in real time and it got kicked out to Fletch, I was like, okay, that's my play. The TKR block, because he came flying over, and that's not usually the way he gets blocks if he does. And then that, pass out to Fletch on the wing, then Fletch missed the shot. So can't be my play of the game. But nonetheless, I thought he was super impactful, got going a little bit later, came out, him and Cluff both, again, just got in the fight a lot more down low in that beginning of the second half, especially.
I honestly thought Wisconsin did a pretty good job against all 3 bigs and trying to limit what those guys do best. And, more times than not, like the bigs are going to get their buckets when Braden Smith is setting them up on a silver platter. But how those guys get their buckets when that isn't occurring is the difference between them having kind of a run-of-the-mill game like you saw tonight and a standout performance where you're eclipsing or somewhere around 20 or above, right? And so I thought Wisconsin was doing a good job of denying the interior pass and doing a good job of making them work for it if they did get it in, that it was deeper into the shot clock where then TKR couldn't kind of back you down, and that was forcing the kick. So I thought those were key. And even with Jacobson, like they were ready for the lob at a couple different points, knowing to kind of stay back as Braden's driving. And so I thought overall, the bigs are always going to do what they're going to do from a physicality standpoint. But from a production standpoint, I thought Wisconsin did a good job of kind of limiting them as best they could.
Yeah, I was surprised Purdue didn't go to the post as much as they did. Like I thought they were going to go a little bit more, but honestly, I think that's a perfect segue to like Oscar Cluff, who we should talk about next, because I'm going to read his stat line, and it's just, at least to me, did not feel this way, but he ends up with 12 points and 11 rebounds, a double-double in 26 minutes of play, 5 of 7 from the field, 2 of 3 from the free throw line, had 3 offensive rebounds, 2 assists to no turnovers, and a steal, which he also brought the ball up. That was the one where, like, I looked at the box score and I had to do a double take. I was like, Cluff had a double. Like, did not
Yeah.
watching it did not feel that way. But this is what
Right.
he's basically averaging a double on the season. So I guess it's sort of a normal game for him at this point. But that it was just like that was the one where I looked at the box score and I was just like, whoa, like I didn't fully expect to see that. But I think it's also a testament to just kind of how steady Cluff has been.
Yeah, and I was towards the end of the first half. I looked up at the box score and said something about, man, like Oscar's only got 1 rebound, and the next time I looked up, he had 6, like real early in the second half, and it's like when did he get those other 5? And it came in waves once he got going, and there was a play in there that really exemplified to me him flipping that switch, and he missed it. It was that series where we got 3 offensive rebounds in a row and we don't end up scoring on it. But I think that first offensive rebound he didn't like lollygag around. He didn't feel things out. He just turned and ripped and went to the rim. Probably could have been a foul call there. There wasn't, whatever. It doesn't matter. But like,
Yep.
I was just happy to see him swinging, right? Throwing punches and instead of being passive out there. And that steal, that was another play, Joe, where I like in real time, I'm like, this is my play of the game. Like he steals it. He's leading up the break. It's going to lead to points. That's my play of the game. Doesn't lead to points either. So two plays that got ruined by other people not scoring on the opposite end for me.
Well, and how many possessions did Purdue have in this game, Joe? I mean, that's the other aspect of this is, when Purdue's moving up and down the court and moving the basketball the way they are. I mean, I know they got a lot of shots up in this game, but they also just get a lot of possessions where, guys are able to find their average, get to the middle ground of a statistical output just from the fact of, how efficient they are, but how fast they move.
Yeah, this per Ken Palm, 72 possessions in this one, which actually would be their second most on the season.
It felt like it.
Yeah, like there was definitely a little bit more tempo, and that's a good call out too, where just you get a few more possessions that can lead to a couple more boards, a couple more buckets, and can help guys kind of find their average and spread things around a bit.
Yeah.
Can I just say that I felt like we got baited into playing fast in the first half. I would love to see the tempo metrics from the first half to the second half, because I thought we looked worse when we were trying to play at their speed. Go ahead.
I was going to say it's per stat broadcast, 34 possessions in the first half, 35 in the seconds, but also garbage time can skew things a touch, I think, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I get the argument, and I've heard it several places now about like, why is Purdue playing so slow when they have all these studs and da 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 da. But hey, we're the number 1 Ken Palm offensive efficiency team in the country, playing at the tempo that we play. Like, what necessarily is the advantage of playing faster? And I thought when the game was close, I honestly thought a few times we got baited into pushing and taking too quick a shots. 3-point attempt with nobody underneath the rebound at all on a fast break. And I honestly wanted us to pump the brakes and work through our half court offense a little bit more, if I got to be honest.
Well, that's what we want. We want honesty from you. And we appreciate your honesty as always. And hopefully you guys we haven't even seen each other since Christmas or New Year's. Hopefully you guys had great holidays as well. That I forgot to start out the show saying that. Because we were
Braden breaking a record kind of bury things a bit.
Well, we hope hopefully everyone in the chat also had a great holiday season, as we are now shifting our focus to a national championship run, and somewhere squeezed in between that, hopefully the Bears win a Super Bowl. No big deal. I'm not asking for much this year here in 2026, just a simple Super Bowl championship for my Bears and a national championship for the Boilers. It's simple asks. We've been through enough. But where do we want to take this next? Appreciate it.
I think you got to go to – I mean, all 5 starters were in double figures. So I think you got to go to CJ next.
Yeah. All right. Well, CJ Cox ends with the night with 14 points, 4 of 11 shooting, 3 of 8 from 3. Gets to the free throw line, makes 3 out of 4 of those. Only 1 assist, 3 rebounds, and 23 minutes of action. So 14 points on 23 minutes of play, 3 steals, found his way into that category as well. So another very productive night from CJ Cox.
And we talked about how important the turnovers were. And, if you look at the turnover margin at the end of the first half and Purdue being up, 6, I think, or 7 at the end of the first half, whatever it was.
7.
Yeah. The extra amount of possessions Purdue had from those forced turnovers was really, really important. So I think those 3 steals were really big to his night, but shoots 3 of 8 from 3. 3 of 4 from the free throw line. I thought he attacked a couple of times when he kind of got out on the break. The one time he got embarrassingly blocked. But outside of that was real early in the game, but still I like him when he's being aggressive. And I just feel like we're seeing him. You would see it at times last year. And there's still games, right, where the game plan and the way they're playing just is not going to lend itself to CJ taking shots. But when it is there, I feel like he's just much, much more comfortable being consistently aggressive now.
Yeah, to me, it was a weird CJ game. I'm going to be honest. I thought his first half was was probably his worst half all season, like just straight up. And that's weird in itself because CJ doesn't usually have those really down moments. Like Jakari will have games where he misses a few threes. Meyer's going to have turnovers or some defensive lapses and things like that. Like CJ doesn't usually have stuff like that. And it felt like the first half, it was kind of everything. Missed a few open shots. I know he did make one, couple poor decisions, got blown by a couple times defensively. And that's like I said, that's why Jakari got the minutes to finish the first half over him. And then even Meyer. And then he just comes out in the second half and was like, all right, I'm fine. I'm good. And has a very, very, very good second half in which, he shoots 2 of 5 from 3, knocks down a 2 also. Defense was much, much better, I thought. Had that one ISO pull-up 3 that he had where it was just like, oh, yeah, he can kind of do that. That's deep in the depths of the Purdue playbook, or not playbook, but just capabilities offensively. So it was just really good for me to see him have such a good second half, especially considering like I said, it's weird to see. It's weird for me, at least, to come away from watching CJ play basketball and be like, that was noticeably poor. Because usually it's yeah, nothing he did really stood out, but that's not always a bad thing because it usually means Braden and TKR and Fletch took a bunch of shots and CJ did his job defensively. And that's sometimes that's a good thing. But yeah, really, really, really impressed with how he came out in the second half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And,
certainly did get blown by a couple of times in that first half. And I thought, I'll talk to you a little bit more about this offline, Joe, because I'm not going to bore everybody else. But I thought Wisconsin, with that continuity offense in terms of what they're doing, did a really good job of not allowing Purdue to force Blackwell to some degree early on when he was going, and Boyd didn't allow them to force them baseline into help. They kept getting downhill in the middle of the court early on.
Yeah, there's a few times it felt very decisive of so there's ice coverage, which is where you force sideline into help there. It was the opposite of that, where they were perpendicular to the sideline almost, and just no, you're going to go to the middle where we have some more bodies prepared. Because that is Wisconsin loves. They love Blackwell especially. Loves catching on that wing and just ripping baseline because defense is out of position. You can rotations aren't there, and he just rips and goes. And yeah, I mean, he did it against Braden for sure in the first half. Maybe once against CJ. TKR was more of just a ISO. I'm just gonna take you to the rim. But besides, after that early stretch, yeah, I thought Purdue did a good job limiting that. And that starts oftentimes with CJ, Jakari, Braden can be thrown in that mix.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get to any more spotlights of players, I did want to spotlight this Wisconsin fan in the chat. I'm assuming this is your son, Kraig.
This is my son.
Yeah, and I'm assuming he's sitting right behind you.
He is.
Is that him right there? Hey, you little shit. I see you putting FDU in the chat. Don't hide. Don't come off the screen.
He can't hear you.
Yeah, well, tell him that if I see any more talk out of him in the chat, I'm going to drive to Wisconsin myself, and I hate that state.
All right.
All right, then.
Shout out Braden. Did a good job on the preview.
Take all his
He did.
Christmas presents from him.
He did. Hold on.
Don't mute.
No, I was telling I could hear it in the background playing off of his phone, so I was just telling him to turn it down. So he's just having some fun in the chat, Greg. Let him have his fun.
He's having his fun.
He took a beat down tonight. So
That's right. That's right. As he should.
I think he means hockey. We can watch hockey together, not hokey, but
hokey.
Yeah. Did do nice. Hey, all in all, I do want to say too, Wisconsin fans are great. Like every time I've been here.
All right.
Like they can be yelling and screaming and everything else, and then all of us, like somebody like Braden hit that. He was driving, lost the ball, picked it up at his feet, and still hit like a 7-foot fadeaway. And like, there's Wisconsin fans behind us, like that were yelling and screaming and hit it, and they were just like, oh, like look at me and be like, that's a nice shot. Like that's a nice shot. It's like they're just the nicest fans.
Yeah.
Side note to that.
I did know it was your son. I did want to be 100% sure, but I knew there was some people in our chat that maybe didn't know that. So he is trolling. Let him have his fun, and we'll punish him later for this. So it's fine. All right. Where else do we want to kick it around before we close the door?
I think Joe had something. He said side.
I was just quickly going to, that kind of reminded me because we didn't really talk about it because Braden had the assist. Like some of the shots Braden hit tonight was just stupid. Like some tough fade. Like I feel like all of his shots were just tough fadeaways today. He had one where it was like he felt like he was behind the backboard when he shot it almost, and so that just reminded me.
Especially early on when Wisconsin went up like 9-2, right? And then Purdue immediately goes up 10-9. But like early on, you're like, oh boy, here we go. This is going to be one of those games. And my co-host on CHGO Bears, Adam Hogue's a graduate of Wisconsin, and he's like trolling me. He's like, oh, why is this game? I don't know what the spread was for Vegas, but he's like, I can't believe the spread was what it was. Purdue should win this game by 15. I'm like, it's, at this point they're down 7. I'm like, it's a road game on the Big Ten. Throw all the metrics out the table more times than not when it comes to, Big Ten life in the Big Ten, especially as we get later in the season. But they end up winning by 16, and I immediately get a text from Adam goes, I am Vegas. So he had it right on the nose for the 15. Edward in the chat says the spread was 8. So, I'm not a big gambler or anything of that nature, but you can throw out records when it comes to life on the road in the Big Ten. I don't care how good of a team you are. So that's why you don't take for granted wins at the Kohl Center by 16 points when you felt like they should have won by 28. So,
yep.
All right. Where do we want to wrap this up before we get to game balls and play of the game?
I think Jakari is the only one we need to at least sort of. We don't have to talk too in depth about, but at least kind of give a little bit more to, and then we can just briefly hit on the other 3. But Jakari, 6 points, 2 of 5 from 3, 2 of 7 overall, 1 assist, 1 steal. I do think he was the one that I thought he had a bigger impact than maybe what his stats indicated. I just love seeing the confidence shooting the ball. Like he is stepping into it. He is willing to fire. Sometimes I wish CJ almost had Harris's trigger of just like being willing to I think literally Jakari like 2 seconds into the game just put one up, and I think he missed that one, and that's one where maybe you can live without. But he's up to 35% from 3 in the season. He's 46% in the 3 conference games. Defensively, I thought he was pretty good. Like I think he's getting closer to fully rounding into that like 7th man that Purdue kind of needs him to be.
Yeah. I thought he looked great tonight at times. Obviously we talked about all of them. The guards having a few defensive breakdowns along the way, but again, the confidence that he has really seems to be like it's stuck now, that 3-point shooting is there, and you don't feel like, oh, is this going to be a game where Jakari hits a 3 or not? Like you just expect if he shoots several that one of them's going to go in, and like he's pump faking and sidestepping.
Yeah,
we never saw that from Jakari last year, not once. So definitely impressive.
Yep. Last couple guys, I don't think we need to go in depth, just kind of read off their stats. And if you guys got anything, you can say it. Jacobson, 7 points, 3 of 4 shooting, 3 boards, 2 blocks today, 4 fouls in 14 minutes. Meyer, 3 points, 1 and 2 from 3, a rebound, 2 turnovers, but 2 steals in 11 minutes. And Benner, 2 points on 1-on-1 shooting and 8 minutes of play. I think Jacobson, like the foul thing is just, he's going to have random games like this, especially against Big Ten bigs where he's still very handsy. And some of it is good because he's the only one that really can block shots consistently on the team. And you kind of need that rim protector like that. Sometimes it's going to get him into foul trouble. Looking now, just KenPom, he actually has the highest block rate in the entire country, Jacobson, which didn't realize it was actually that high. So that's like you're going to naturally get some foul trouble with that. Meyer, I think we already talked about with good defense. Thought he played within system. 1 or 2 bad passes, and we already hit on Benner. I don't got anything on the others on those 3.
The only thing I'd say about Jacobson in the first half, it felt like when guards were getting downhill, he was chasing them. And in the second half, it felt like, oh, like they have to come through me. Like I don't have to chase necessarily. As long as I just kind of move a little bit laterally one way or another to get into position, they're going to have to shoot it over me and I have a chance to block. And it just felt like he kind of was like, I'm the backstop, let him come. And I thought he really impacted quite a few shots in that second half at a much more effective way than what he did in the first half.
Yeah, absolutely. Salty B here in the chat says, Boilers in the stands, happy new year. Good way to start 2026. Boiler up and good night all. We appreciate you as always, Salty B. And that brings us to our plays of the game, and then we'll finish up with player of the game. I don't know if we'll have 3 tonight. It might just be the one and only Braden, but I'll start out with my play of the game, and maybe they should all just be different iterations of what Braden Smith did tonight. So my play of the game was on the fast break as he's driving downhill. He's got 2 guys collapsing on him underneath the basket, and the 360 pirouette spin, handoff to Trey Kaufman-Renn, easy dunk. Just the understanding pace, not to force the layup, the eyes in the back of his head, the feel of everyone around him as he's, coming downhill. He's so good at that, whether it's a trailer on a 3 on the other side of the court, or it's, getting to the rim and giving that easy handoff to a big in an easier basket. He's just so good at that feel for the game, the pace to wait for the defense to kind of collapse at that right time to hand it off. So to me, that was my play of the game. Obviously, he just puts on a clinic every night. You can almost point to every one of his assists, but that was my favorite one.
Go ahead, Joe.
I mean, there's a very easy one. There's a very easy one of like, hey, Braden Smith breaks the all-time Big Ten assist record, but I'll go quickly over one of my other ones, go to the board real quick. And it was about 1:10 left in the first half, in one where Purdue starts out in kind of this horn set. This horn set is very common where you have 2 at the elbows extended, 2 guys in the corner, Braden up top. Oftentimes they have 2 bigs, and what they'll do is they'll run off one screen, have him kind of roll and then roll off the other and get a high-low look. This time they bring Loyer into it, and because Wisconsin was switching all their guard actions, Loyer sets this first screen, and it's just like a half screen to be honest, but it's just enough confusion where Braden literally, I mean, he moved probably that much, truthfully. Like, it wasn't much. He moved that much, but basically it caused this defender to jump out this way, this defender to kind of be here. And so now, as Braden came off, this was Boyd right here. I remember specifically. Boyd thought, I think this was Janicki, but Boyd thought Janicki was up on Braden switching. Janicki thought he was staying because Braden only went here. And so now, as they wrap back around and comes off this screen, Wisconsin this high hedge, Cluff rolls, and it was one of these that kind of wrap arounds. You occupy the defense. I think CJ like lifted here. You occupy the defense, hits a nice wraparound pass. Cluff catches it here, converts at the rim. So I just like the play design, the little details of like, all right, putting Loyer in that spot forces the defense to at least have to be decisive in what they want to do with that guard to guard action. They weren't, and then boom, Braden picks it apart almost immediately.
I love how Greg and I are like, I like that play where the one guy passed it to the other guy and they scored. And Joe's like a 3-minute dissertation, like just breaking it down beautifully.
That's how it should
and
be. That's how it should
yeah,
be.
I know. And I'm like, I like when guy threw it to the other guy and he dunked it. That was cool.
Sometimes that's
but
it too,
anyway,
but I didn't do an offensive
yeah,
board yet, so I figured
I
felt
love
like
it.
I needed to.
I
There's
love it.
a little
I love it.
sneaker board.
Yeah.
And then your son's in the chat saying, "Bring out the board."
Shout
I
out
will
Brady.
bring out the board and I'll crack you over the head with it. Now get to bed.
I do man, I really wanted to go with that shot that Braden hit when he lost the ball as he was moving full speed out of bounds at the baseline and somehow picks it up as his feet and hits that fadeaway. Because, like, that's so hard in terms of body control, just so amazingly hard. But I'm going to go with the play that broke the record since nobody else did. And here's why I love it. We all love Braden's crazy passes, the highlight reel passes, but the bulk of his assists come from like yeoman effort of just manipulating the defense a little bit, understanding where and when that opening is going to be there to make the pass, when that guy's going to break free to get him in the right position to score. And it was just like, to me, just like a prototypical example of the majority of his assists to a big man, just getting a little sliver of light underneath the rim and making an easy bucket.
Yeah. He is the best to ever put on the uniform as a point guard for Purdue basketball. And between him and Zach Edey, it's just kind of surreal to say that these are the players that we've been having the privilege to cover over these last 5-6 years. It's really been unbelievable. And so we're going to cherish every moment here as this season goes on. And then in 4 years, I'm sure we'll be talking about some other generational talent that Purdue has developed into. It'll probably be Jack Benner, the greatest 3-point shooter of all time, but that'll be a story for another day as I continue my Benner love. Rightfully so. He's an amazing player. I kid. Maybe he's the greatest of all time. We'll find out. But all right, player of the game. Do we really need to
go
give
first?
Well,
I mean,
do we really need to give it to anyone else but Braden? Like, I'm not going to go first, but my question is,
fair.
Do we really give it to anyone else but Braden Smith? It doesn't feel right to.
I mean, we have our rules, and our rules is one per person, and Kraig gets to go first.
All right, Kraig, you're up first.
I am going to give it to the all-time career assist leader in the Big Ten.
This is such a
one of
how
Purdue's.
can you take a layup? When you're gonna give
that's why I went last.
Game, when you're gonna go player of the game, you can't take a layup for a guy that's known for assists.
No, I'm doing it. I'm taking the layup. That's why I went last in play of the game, specifically so I had this position to give Braden his flowers. I didn't get the 20 minutes that you guys got that you went on ahead of time, but I'm giving it to Purdue's best all-time point guard, to one of NCAA's potentially best all-time point guards by the time that he's done, and currently the Big Ten career assist leader as of tonight. Braden Smith, take your flowers. Incredible career to this point. More to come.
There it is. All right, Joe, who do you got?
I'll give it to Cluff. Just kind of quiet, continues to do his thing, basically averaging a double-double, 12 and 11. Just a game where it's not like I was watching, it was just like, oh man, Cluff's dominating, but then you kind of look at the end and you're like, oh yeah, Cluff is just really, really good and impactful for Purdue.
Absolutely. And I'll finish it up with Fletcher Loyer, for all the talk, and rightfully so, of Braden Smith and his incredible 4-year career. The guy standing next to him for every one of those games as they continue to keep this consecutive streak of starting games together since they joined the floor as freshmen, and that hasn't changed. I mean, when you talk about continuity and consistency, they embody that in everything they've built in this Purdue program over 4 years. Braden's going to get all the headlines. Braden's going to get the spotlight, understandably so, rightfully so. But the guy standing next to him through all the battles, through all the ups and downs, and has elevated his game this year, in my opinion, in a way that is going to pay dividends in March when you have a player of his caliber, his shooting prowess, playing with this level of confidence. And now you've got other threats around the court to get some of those double teams off. it's just going to, I think, continue to be a big year for Fletcher Loyer, and he's going to have even bigger moments here later in the year. So 20 points from Fletcher, but overall his impact and importance goes beyond this game.
Yeah, I respect it, and I think that's a very good pick. So,
Yep. So that's it. I mean, we've got some starred comments here, some different player of the games or plays of the game contributions. JB here in the chat says, my play of the game was where TKR called the timeout after securing the loose ball, the hustle on the play, culminating with that set the tone in the second half, and the lead ballooned from that point on.
Yeah, that's a very good one, because that was just, they didn't even score from it, but it was just like, it was just kind of like, oh yeah, Purdue is going to control this.
Steven Tater Swingle says, my play of the game was the Omar Meyer 3 early on to beat the shot clock. Just seemed like a critical make at that time. Definitely a big time shot. His only points of the night, but they were big ones, no doubt. Matt Spurgeon here in the chat, this is something you highlighted earlier on, Joe. Said, Joe, does points per possession count a possession as a trip down the floor, i.e., do offensive rebounds create new possessions, or are they the same possession?
So, yeah, if you hear somebody talking about points per possession, they're like, it does incorporate offensive rebounds. So, like, if you get 9 offensive rebounds in one possession, it's still just one possession. The stat I was specifically talking about is like more points per shot, where it doesn't take into account offensive rebounds and putbacks, this is a callback from an hour ago at this point, but the stat that I brought up with how Purdue is operated in points per shot basis in terms of against drop and hedge is even more impressive when you take that into account, because like the 1.24 points per shot against drop does not take into account offensive rebounds and putbacks. Like if you did, that number is going to probably be higher.
Yep. Okay. Thank you for that underlining. Nothing to see here. Giving a little back to the kid behind you. It says, how many picks do you need of Bobby? Are you going to do a time lapse? He's going to be on stalker watch after a few more.
Hey, I told Bobby it was like, you know how when we were little kids growing up, we had a doorway where we marked off how much we grew from one year to the next. So it's each picture that we get next to Bobby, we see Braden grow a little bit more from one season to the next season. So
I like it.
We haven't done stalker cam in a while with Bobby. So there it is. I haven't busted out the stalker cam in quite some time. So, but glad you guys had some fun. Glad you were able to sit in the stands with the fans, Kraig, and do your thing and have fun that way. It's a different way of watching the game. Gives you a little more allowance to yell at the refs, which I always enjoy. Double D Sports, $5 super chat saying, Braden record, starters dominated, cruise to Big Ten road win. Boys are rolling. Everyone played solid. Bits is goated. Boiler up, bear down. Love it. Appreciate you, Double D, as always. Sorry I didn't get to these super chats earlier. That's on me. BK Bennett, $5 super chat says, congrats to Braden and the team. It's a record, but most importantly, it's a great road win. What a special team with extra special effort tonight. Definitely can't be underlooked. I think they talked about something on the broadcast where Purdue doesn't always start out 3-0 in the Big Ten, even in years they've been good. And so they didn't have that early Big Ten slip up like they've had. Doesn't guarantee anything, but Purdue sometimes has kind of had to pull themselves out of a minor hole that they dig themselves in, whether it's against Rutgers or even Wisconsin at Mackey a few years ago. And they aren't playing with their food here this year. And when you're looking around the landscape of the Big Ten, Nebraska is obviously making a name for themselves. A big win last night over Michigan State. We all know what Michigan's up to. Michigan State's obviously still good even after that loss. Illinois is who they are. So this is going to be a tough road in the Big Ten, and Purdue's going to have to get every win that they should win and then do everything they can in some of those tough environments like Nebraska and others that are going to be coming up here. Salty B says, heard Cluff might be getting a 5th-year option Anyone else hear that? I know everything's kind of run amok in terms of, eligibility with players, but Kraig, did you do any diving into this? I did see it on Twitter, but I didn't give much thought to it.
So, Smith, kind of let something slip on the Sleepers podcast that he's on about, I heard Cluff might even be getting a 5th year or something like that. What it basically would boil down to is Cluff played 2 years of JUCO ball. And the way the NCAA decided to treat JUCO ball was that those 2 years, in the NIL era, because of some court cases, they're basically bringing that in as 1 year is kind of the way I understand that.
So because I got a little bit of clarification from some people on that, and I'll do my best to try to explain it, is that it's not the 2 years was treated as one. It was, if you played JUCO in this specific year, I forget, I think it was the 21-22 season, maybe the first year that NIL really became a thing. If you played JUCO during that season specifically, you got a year back. So anybody that's playing JUCO now doesn't get an extra year. Anybody that played JUCO a year or two ago doesn't get an extra year. If you played 2 years, you just get that one. Now somebody will sue, I'm sure, in 3 months and probably win, and this ruling will go out the door. But as of now, that is my understanding of how this works. It was just a one-time 1 year thing.
So what year did he, because this technically is his 5th year if you count both years at JUCO, because he had 2 years at JUCO,
right?
And
so
then
was one of those JUCO years the year you're referencing?
It would have had to have been.
Yeah, I think it was
he wouldn't have this year.
Yeah, I think it was his first year was the year that would have counted. I would have to go ask around what year specifically it was, but and also don't I'm 95% confident, but it's not I could.
Well, it would have been his second year if only one of the 2 years counted, because that would have been the second year would have been the most recent, which would have started in the NIL, right? Or no.
It was the first. Basically, the argument that the Vanderbilt QB said was you didn't know about NIL at that point, essentially that first year, and so he wasn't able to make money because he wasn't aware. But then from then on, going to JUCO, you're aware of the circumstances. I don't know. Again, somebody will sue and probably get an extra year, and who knows?
I'm gonna sue so we can bring Zach Edey back. Dave here in the chat, or he's on Twitter commenting saying, I want to super chat. And just as a reminder that anybody's watching on Twitter or Facebook, we obviously really appreciate you tuning in. Hopefully you're enjoying the program. If you want to be able to super chat like you're seeing and we're reading here at the end, the only way you can do that is going to our YouTube page, watching on our YouTube channel. The umbrella channel is called Brags in the Stands, but if you search Boilers in the Stands, it'll take you to our channel. You can subscribe, obviously hitting the like button on the show, but you can join the YouTube chat, and then you'll be able to get your super chat in. I did kind of scroll back, and he did ask, do we have enough to make the Final Four? And I think, not speaking for all three of us, but I think I can when I say, without a doubt, this team has every element that you need to make a Final Four run. I think the biggest key, and this is something we kind of learned a few years ago in Edey's senior year, a big key to this season is Purdue finding their way into a number 1 seed. Won't be easy. There's some really good teams up there, Arizona and Michigan, and right now Purdue's ranked 5th in the country, and nobody cares about rankings. That's fine. We don't have to worry about rankings, but what you do have to worry about is that number 1 seed. It's not the be-all, end-all, but it is your pathway to a Final Four if you want to get there. And if you don't get it, makes your road a little bit tougher, but not impossible. But that 1 seed, as we learned in Edey's senior year, was certainly key. Jason Depew finishes things off with a $10 super chat saying, game ball goes to Braden. Great content as always. Thank you. And everyone hit the like button to help out Boilers in the Stands. Thank you, Jason, as always, for your unwavering support. Go ahead, Kraig.
Also, make sure you go to the Boilers and Stand Facebook page and Instagram page and and follow those as well.
That's right. Kraig's killing it with the socials, picking it up here, doing all sorts of different things. So definitely do that. Dave says, got it. I'm subscribed on Twitter. I'll get you guys next time. And we appreciate that. Thank you for tuning in, Dave, and hanging out here for the end of Boilers in the Stands postgame show as Purdue wins, going away in the second half on Wisconsin at the Kohl Center in Madison as Braden Smith breaks the all-time assist record in Big Ten history. Pretty remarkable career for that young man. So next Purdue game, I believe, is Wednesday. So we'll see if I, make it to then with the Bears here on Sunday. Although tomorrow's going to be a less stressful game. The Bears are in the playoffs, but then next Sunday is when things get serious on my end, as the Bears have finally made the playoffs and won their division for the first time since 2018. So I'm having a lot of fun with all the coverage we're doing, but whether it's basketball or football, and I'm not taking it for granted. So we appreciate every single one of you guys here in the chat hanging out with us for a extended edition of Boilers in the Stands. Joe and Kraig will have a preview show for you, as they always do, sometime next week. So make sure you guys stay tuned for that. And that wraps things up. I don't think do you guys have anything else, or I'm going to close this baby out?
Boiler up. Braden Smith's incredible.
Braden Smith is incredible. Midwestern goodbye, a little more condensed here tonight. Appreciate everybody. And we will see you here soon. So congrats once again to Braden Smith. Go Bears. Boiler up. See you next week.